Hello, and welcome to the You, Me, We Therapy podcast. This podcast is about emotions and how they feature in our lives, what they can teach us, how they affect us. The reason I'm interested in emotions is because I'm a counsellor. So I come up against emotions on a regular basis as part of my practice. And I found that they are tied in with thoughts, they are tied in with behaviours, and they're tied in with our view of the world. So join me on this journey of exploration, and I hope self-exploration. In today's episode, I want to talk about anger and my ideas and my thoughts about them, and some of it will resonate with you, and what doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to make it fit, but I hope you find this episode enjoyable and insightful. This podcast isn't a substitute for seeking professional mental health guidance and advice. If you are finding that you need further exploration in any of the topics that I bring up, or you feel triggered, please seek professional guidance and advice. If you feel unable to keep yourself safe, please take yourself to accident and emergency. Hi people, so you're back for more. Today I want to talk about anger. I've mentioned obviously in my other episodes about touching on emotions, and I've kind of gone about it via scenarios and things like that, whereas today I'm talking directly about a specific emotion, which I will do in the future too. So yeah, let's get into it. Anger. And I want to approach this, let me just go with this here. So our minds, our bodies and our hearts, anger really can seep its way through all of those. If we just think about what anger does to our minds on a negative, and I'll talk about positives too, but let's start with negatives. When angry, it can cause you to be unable to think clearly. The brain can kind of go into action mode rather than thinking. It can become consuming. It can shorten your vision towards a positive outcome when you are in anger. Our minds can race. It can become overloaded with racing thoughts to the point that somebody could have that going on so much excuse me, that actually after a period of time their mind almost shuts down and it leads into a depression. Anger can have us on high alert. Anger can have us see things that fit our narratives. An example could be feeling angry at somebody and that person says a comment, and the narrative could be, yeah, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? You know, it can feed in things that are innocent into a particular narrative. Anger can have one seek out justice. It can lead to things like revenge. It can also, on another level of shutting down, it can cause someone's mind to shut down momentarily, to see red, so to speak, and lead on to rage. So those are some of the negatives. And people generally think of anger as a negative emotion, yet there are positives, which I'll go into some here. Anger as a positive, it can alert us to a crossed boundary. It can actually, I've mentioned that it can lead into depression. Anger actually has the ability to pull somebody out of depression too. When somebody's very low, and they're in a state of kind of going around and around and around in that low mood, really getting cheesed off at something, someone or a situation that you feel led to that depressive place you're in can actually lift you out of it a bit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's something to constantly use as a crutch to get out of depression, but it definitely can give a little bit of a kick out of it. Can create a shift, definitely can create an energetic shift in a depressive mood. Anger can get your view or opinion noticed, and anger can feel like a sense of relief when there's built-in frustrations that have been, gathered up. This is how I see it in our minds, how I feel anger can affect our minds. How about our bodies? So I'm sure we all know what it feels like to be angry. Anger can bring about disease and illness, definitely. It can lead to muscle tension, aches and pains, and so after a while this can definitely lead to illness. It brings about stress, which heightens cortisol levels, which then weakens the immune system, which will affect someone's health eventually if there's long-standing anger going on. And it can quicken the body to action when under threat. So I'm just saying how it can affect the body on all kind of levels. So somebody could immediately be under threat, feel angry, and jump into action. The adrenaline tied in with anger, it's got somebody up and moving really quick. Yet, when somebody, because we've all known people that just come across as angry, always angry. For that person, it can feel quite a burden to live with this kind of beast that sits with them, and it can leave them feeling actually physically quite weighted down by that. And it can affect behaviours. So, for example, passive-aggressive behaviour on one end of the spectrum, all the way up to the other end of the spectrum, which is aggressive behaviour. Passive-aggressive behaviours could be like comments somebody might make about another person. Like I mentioned earlier, something fitting into a narrative. I made a comment about somebody saying something like, for example, oh yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you? That could be conceived, that can be thought of as quite passive-aggressive. Another passive-aggressive behaviour could be ignoring someone's texts. You've seen it come up on your phone, or they've seen it come up on their phone, and think, no, I'm not going to bother with that right now. That could be a passive-aggressive thing to do. Aggressive, down the other end of the spectrum, could be full-on violence. And even violence to the self, like self-harming and things like that. It can be like a punishing. Somebody may find themselves in a position of harming themselves because there's many different reasons, but one reason could be like a type of anger and a punishment towards yourself, or to punish yourself before another person gets to punish you. You do it to you, you control it doing it to you. I say you as in, like, generally speaking, I'm using that. I'm using the word you as a way of assuming that you understand I'm talking about the general collective, us as people. Yeah, the anger has us doing all kind of things. I mean, check this. Have you ever been angry at someone and you do a little bit of exploration and you really pick it apart a bit and you think about it, and then come to find out that actually they're angry at you? You're sitting there stewing about something that they've done and pondering on it, and then you're really thinking on it, and then your thought takes you down to some of their behaviours, and you think, well, actually, it looks like they were angry at me first. I've just caught up. I'm late to the party. So yeah, I've talked about it, how it affects our minds and our bodies. So our hearts, what's behind anger? Because anger's like the wall, the defense, the thing that's at the surface. Anger's the jacket, the coat that someone's got on, but what happens underneath it? What's really going on? Underneath anger tends to be fear and sadness. So if we look at the fear behind anger, it could be about not wanting to lose control. If we look at the sadness behind anger, it could go into thoughts of I'm not lovable, I'm hurt and don't feel noticed, I'm alone in this. And what can bring about anger? Things like betrayal, a lack of loyalty, injustice. Shock could bring about anger too. Shock. Like somebody could find themselves just going to anger, like almost like a default position when surprised or when troubled by something. Anger. Go to that. It can be something that's familiar with some people, to have immediately kind of lean into aggression to push another person away. Tiredness, just general tiredness, feeling irritable, that too can lead to anger. So how I look at anger in my mind, I always think of it in this kind of scenario. I think of a road rage scenario. Now, different people around different parts of the world, hopefully you'll be listening to this. And there's different temperaments of different people. So I can't assume that everywhere in the world has road rage. But from me, I'm coming from a perspective of thinking of London. Road rage is a thing. It can be taken to an extreme level. People can even go as far as carry bats and weapons in their boots, just waiting for someone to cut them up so they've got an opportunity to jump out with a weapon. Yes, so road rage. Think of a scenario like this. Now you're observing, let's be the observer here. So we've got two people, one cuts another person up on the road, they both jump out the car and they're angry. The person who feels they've been cut up on the road, like their journey's been interrupted because somebody's either pulled their car out in front of them or not given way or something. So they get out the car to somebody who's already out their car angry. They jump out their car. If they don't come out with anger, what they're facing already is anger. So they leave themselves very vulnerable and open to attack, open to criticism, overwhelmed with another person's dissatisfaction of them. Far too much to deal with in that instance, considering there's just been a grievance had as well. So perhaps only one or two thoughts or emotions can be dealt with at that time. So let's use, that person may think, put some anger in this so the other person can get back into their lane and back the hell off, whilst I manage what I can with the scenario that's in front of me. So basically what that is a defense mechanism. So jumping out their car angry has a benefit to them. It gives them time and space. It perhaps lets them sit in an emotion they may be happy with, not happy with, comfortable with, sorry, that's the correct word, familiar with. Not everybody likes feeling angry. Some people want to do everything to avoid anger, but then that too can foster inside and become resentment, which can then lead down, like I'd mentioned earlier, passive aggressive behaviors. If you're not able to express your anger clearly, they can then lead into passive aggressive behaviors. If you're not able to say what's going on your mind on the spot there and then, call it for what it is. What I've found has really helped me with anger, or not even anger, so many different emotions, but let's use anger as we're talking about anger. What I found helpful is you may have heard of her or not, Byron Katie. I've followed her work for some years. I was fortunate enough to go to a workshop once. It was amazing. Her work is really about radical acceptance. So even if you're not a Byron Katie fan, radical acceptance can really help with anger too, sometimes. Because, like I'd mentioned earlier, with passive aggressive type anger, you may be bubbling and seething under the surface about some irritating thing that's occurred to you. And when you explore it with a little bit of radical acceptance, which isn't just a case of, okay, I've got this, I'll just accept what it is. Byron Katie's work, I don't know if she calls it radical acceptance, I'm calling it radical acceptance. She puts that person who's got the issue in the spotlight. they get to explore it from their perspective and take full responsibility for their own feelings. So when you do that kind of exploration, like I was saying, you might come to find out that actually, well, god damn, they were angry at me first. I didn't realize. I'll be so caught up in my anger that actually they've been cheesed off with me for months, years even. I didn't even know. And it's just, they've not been able to express it. But I've just picked up on it at a later date, and now I'm struggling with it. So I found her work really helpful. But generally, what I find in a nutshell, what actually helps anger is explanation. If you found yourself getting angry at something or someone, and they were able to explain to you why you've just seen what's happened that's caused you anger, and then you were able to get your mind around it, you'd probably find that anger would somewhat dissipate. It would ease itself in some way. And anger is one of those things that can really teach us a lot about ourselves, because are you comfortable around another person's anger? Are you comfortable expressing anger? How do you deal with anger? How would you like anger delivered to you when you've caused anger and someone's angry with you? How do you want it told to you? What can you withstand? What do you find uncomfortable? And there is a level of discomfort with anger. I guess that's for a reason. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's not supposed to be something you sit in a lot of the time. It's supposed to have a discomfort with it that makes you, is a catalyst to push you on to something else. And even though generally it's seen as quite a negative emotion, it's something that we all know about. So when I come across people and they try to avoid it, I don't really want to get angry. I'm like, it's a nice idea, but come on, like realistically, I don't see how that's even very realistic. Anger is seen as, when people are angry, they're seen as quite fiery and feisty, right? But yet, fiery and feisty people consider that they maybe find a way of expressing what they want. It's an expression, and being able to do it in a healthy way is a good thing, I think. And you can definitely do it in a way with compassion and caring. Obviously, I'd say the line is drawn when it comes to physical aggression and putting your hands on another person, or allowing another person to put their hands on you when angry. And when I say allowing, I don't mean like victim blaming. I mean just there's boundaries. With any emotion, there's boundaries. And anger has quite clear boundaries, I'd say. It's always consider treating yourself, treating others how you want to be treated. But in terms of a wise words that I came across some years back that have really stuck to me. I don't know who said it. Perhaps you might hear this and you think, yeah, that's such and such's quote. I don't know, but it's always stuck with me. To know when to be angry at the right time with the right person. And my little take on the end is, and in the right proportion. Because there are times when anger is needed, but getting the timing right, that takes a bit of wisdom, doesn't it? We are here on this journey figuring it all out together.